So, I mean, from a retention perspective, a couple of things. The way that you start the relationship sets the expectation for the long-term relationship. So we really try and go out of our way to make the initial 60 days really hands-on and really impressive. So we send them a welcome basket in the mail. They get a $75 welcome aboard. We're excited about working with you. We've got a really well mapped out onboard process where we gather the usernames, passwords, multiple calls to kind of set what's your unique selling proposition, what assets do we have, and really set the expectation out of the gates early. After that, really it's about the results and the service that they get. One challenge we found in our agency, and we find it with a lot, is they think that the results are going to carry the day, right? Just because the client's getting calls and return on investment, they're going to be happy. And that's, unfortunately, it's not the case, right? They need to feel pursued. Like the number one reason a client will leave is perceived indifference. Like they just feel like you don't care, you're not engaged, and you're not like thinking about the next step. So you have to have a process where you're meeting with them on a monthly basis, you're pursuing them for that monthly review, you're kind of showing them not just the value and the activity and the return, but you're also always planting the seed in terms of what's next. I think that's the biggest reason people stay, is they feel like, okay, Plumber SEO is thinking about the next thing. How are we going to drive more paid search? How can we tap into local service ads? How can we tap into social media advertising? And like, to the extent that you're planting those seeds in terms of what's next, the client usually is going to stay with you long term.
First and foremost, I don't think I'm a little obsessed. I think I'm a lot obsessed with this. But besides that, I mean, for me, it's what made my management career. It was, I mean, when I started studying and find it's the reason why I've gotten to where I am today, right? There's a lot of personality and sort of behavioral models out there, right? Like Myers-Briggs is very common and so on. The thing about it, the thing that really makes DISC stand out is the simplicity of telling who other people are without them doing a test, right? So basically, like one of the things that I say it all the time, but one of the things I like is when some random dude I've never met comes in and sit down to me next to me in an airplane, I can generally tell him things about himself that he doesn't know, right? And that is an ability that no other behavioral model gives you, right? Like most of these behavioral models, they're always like, oh, can you take this 20-page test? And then I will know who you are. But the problem is that, first of all, some people don't know themselves that well, right? And that means that how they answer questions is very subjective. Second of all, particularly if you're looking at it from a hiring perspective, when you're looking at it, like when employees feel they're getting evaluated, they very often answer what they expect you want to hear rather than what they really think. And no matter how much you tell them that's not the case, that is how the human brain works, right? So for me, in majority of cases, like when I get emails from people, like I can get a simple email from people, and that can often tell you a ton about their personality and who they are, right? And the ability to really read people through natural behaviors is really so powerful, because it tells you the motivations, it tells you how they want to communicate, it tells you like all of this good stuff, right? And when you learn to be able, I mean, it takes a little bit of while to get into it, but majority of my clients, again, they learn to love it as much as I do, right? And they really, like, from an interview perspective, from finding the right people, like, again, right? Like,
most people don't understand that. And I think the second thing with personality types is, and I'm sure it's the same for DISC, is as an entrepreneur, as an individual, what types of people or personality traits you work best with.
Yeah, and so the one thing I would generally say is I like having a good mix of people in teams, right? Like when I build companies, when I build teams, like I have a fair mix of people, right? Okay. But the whole thing is, like, some people naturally breathe and dream about spreadsheets, right? And for some people, they make no sense. Like for some people, even learning simple things like formulas and stuff can be really, really challenging. And the whole thing, as a human being, if you want to learn to be exceptional, you need to learn to profit on your strength, right?
Okay.
You need to push your strength. All these people that are like, oh, I'm not good at this thing, I want to learn it. That's the road to perdition, right? Like it's not the way to do things. Yes, there's certain things, and the only one thing that I recommend all human beings to work on is communication, right? Because we all communicate, and if you're not an effective communicator, no matter what other skills you have, that can bring you down.
So the triple threat retargeting method is something I talked about. This is going back a little ways. This is my first Facebook course. I still think it's highly applicable, but basically it looks at kind of pre-purchase and post-purchase, and breaks down into different buckets, right? And so we'll get away from that naming convention just because it has evolved since then. But what I think is really important when you talk about retargeting is understanding that people are at different points in their journey. So, talking about mistakes people make, we can add a fourth one that ties into this discussion, which is a lot of businesses treat all of their prospects the same, right? So the way they retarget is identical, whether you're a first-time page viewer or you visited the site 10 times, you've added 2 products to the cart, and you still haven't bought, right? Those are 2 very different people. The objections that you've overcome for the second person, way more in depth than the first person, right? The first person, they don't even know if the product's right for them, right? They don't even know if they have the problem that your product solves, right? The second person, they know, hey, I have this problem. I need a solution for it. This solution sounds really interesting. They might still have a few lingering objections, right? Maybe it's like, hey, there's a lot of competitors out there. What makes this unique from the competitors, right? Does it have any doctors that have, or celebrities or authority figures that have endorsed it, CNET? Does it have, great unboxing videos in UGC, things like that? And so retargeting really needs to be looked at as a journey instead of just a one size fits all. Hey, anybody that triggers a custom audience or enters a custom audience, we're going to hit them with the same testimonial ad. You're not going to get results that way, right? You might get some results. That is the challenging thing sometimes with success, is that if you start doing better than you've ever done before, you get this false sense of confidence that you're doing everything right. It's like, hey, I'm making more money today than I've ever made before, so why would I change things up? But what you don't see is that you could be making a lot more money, right? Like, just like you didn't see it a few months ago when you weren't making, at that point you thought you were making as much money as possible, but you've grown from there because you've tried new things. And so success can be a dangerous problem for a lot of marketers and entrepreneurs, just because of that. It gives them the false sense of confidence, right? And so, yeah, I think breaking up, people that have just viewed 25% of a video, people that have engaged with your pages, people that have visited any page on your website, people that have visited key pages on your website, people that have spent the most time on your website, people that have added to the cart, people that initiate checkout, people that have bought more than once, people that have bought and spent 2 times more than the average order value, right? There are so many segments, and the message for each one of those segments needs to be different, right? And not only that, it's not just about the objection blocking, it's also about personalization, right? So maybe you have, 2 people that are both at the abandoned cart phase, but one's a man, one's a woman, right? And I don't know what product we're talking about here, but your product could be used very differently for a man or a woman, right? Like, let's say you're selling a female product. Let's say you're selling like a Dyson hair dryer, really expensive, badass hair dryer, right? And you have men that have abandoned the cart, right? Chances are that guy is probably buying as a gift for his wife, for his daughter, for somebody, right? So the retargeting ads should be focused. Maybe you should have a video of one of your women customers opening a present and getting it, and then the surprise and happiness on her face. That's a powerful ad for a guy thinking, hey, what's the perfect gift to get my wife for Christmas? Whereas for the woman, it should be about, the product, the benefits, the features, right? Other women that she can relate with. So something as simple as that could dramatically increase your conversion rates, and just by segmenting by gender, right? And then you have age, you have placement, you have location. There's so many other variables that you can filter by at each step. So it's funnel steps, and then it's also personalization within each funnel step.
First thing I noticed when I started selling was how terrible salespeople were. it used to blow my mind, actually. Like, I would come into the car dealership and I'd see the salesperson standing there with a spreadsheet. And I'd say, "What are you looking at?" He goes, "Oh, I'm looking at the stock sheet to see which cars have the biggest bonus." And then he'd explain to me the next person that came in, he's going to recommend them the car with the biggest bonus. And I'm thinking, shouldn't you be recommending the right car for them, like regardless of the bonus? Because don't you want them to buy from you again in the future? So I realized that most salespeople are very selfish, and it's more about them paying for the mortgage that month than the customer in front of them. So I've always had a duty of care to the customer, and I want them to be very happy with the purchase. I want them to make the right decision, and I want them to be in a position to refer me and to buy again. So yes, my whole sales funnel is revolving around the customer and their challenge and their needs, and it's sort of a choose your own adventure. But I don't think I should show someone the right offer unless they're in the right prospect. There's no point offering them something that's not a good fit for them, because it starts to take away from their ability to get value, and it just doesn't feel right. And if you only show your right offer to the right prospect, yes, your conversions increase, but also your ability to get them a result increases, your reputation increases. And so, again, like when I stopped selling something that I felt the market had moved on from, I get plenty of traffic to my website who will never see my sales page because they shouldn't see it yet. They're not ready for that solution. So do I make less money initially? Possibly. Is it better long term? I think absolutely. I can sleep well at night knowing that I'm doing my very best to help people with the right solution, and it's certainly worked out really well so far.
Yeah, so I mean, at the end of the day, to catch everybody up, it's really like, what's your problem? Where's your budget? Where are you in this journey? And then you're kind of self-diagnosing, correct?
Yeah, it's although budget might not be the right word, it's more like what size is your business at. And the thing that is probably not obvious, but is rather counterintuitive and directly flies against what most experts teach, is I'm not a big fan of the ascension model. And that is where you start someone for free, and then you give them a little product, and then a slightly bigger product, and then a more expensive recurring, and then a massive product. I just think that is such a flawed concept, because I look at it this way. Imagine you love drinking whiskey, like the finest whiskey from the greatest glen in Scotland. If you go into a bar, you don't start off with the tap whiskey or the low shelf stuff and then work your way up to the good stuff on the top shelf. That whiskey drinker is saying, "I'll have that," and they'll point to the top shelf and they'll start at the top. And the bulk of my clients coming to my highest level program will come straight to it using that selector. And that's what they want. They don't want to wait, and they don't want to work their way through a couple of hundred podcasts first. They want help now. They know it's the right solution, and they're ready to go. So I bring people in at the highest level if that's the right level for them. And the ascension model can go suck.
I completely agree. It's like, if I know, James, that I want to pay you for one-on-one coaching or your highest level program, should I really have to start at a tripwire for $7 or $10, or go listen to your sales webinar, selling me $1,000 product if I want to pay you 30 grand a year?
Yeah, I think some people get in the way of a sale with all this manipulation tactics.
So that keeps your promotions, I'm guessing then, James, like very simple, right?
Yeah, well, I think again, if you look at what I do and what I teach many others, I don't have affiliates. That makes life a lot easier. I'm not constantly looking for fraud or spreadsheets or sending out payments, like a big chunk of my income. I don't do launches, so there's no hype or getting all my mates to email their customers to death, because I don't think that's respectful of the client. That model. I am just very consistent with my marketing of content and organically happy customers making referrals. So you can have a low pressure system that produces really well for the long haul. So I kind of feel like I'm tending a vineyard and I'm producing fine wine, and it takes a while, and it's organic. Like in food, people are going back to organic. In fact, I went to buy a pair of shoes for my wife yesterday, and yesterday was the first day I discovered that what they call fake leather shoes, or like pretty much what we might have called vinyl in the days. I couldn't believe it, but the salesperson called them vegan. There was vegan shoes, which means synthetic leather. Cracked me up. So we're going back to the old ways of organic, and I think all of the tactics that people use to cajole and prod and manipulate and annoy and disrupt people can backfire on them if there's nothing of substance underneath that. If you've got a really good product and you can be consistent with the way you share it, you can actually build up a lot of momentum. People will keep coming to the cellar to buy that wine if you keep looking after the grapes and you don't put crazy insecticides all over them and stuff.
So the way we do retargeting is we've coined our own phrase called omni-targeting. And that gives you a pretty good indication of our philosophy, in that we want to be omnipresent for our prospects. And to do that, the first facet of our approach is it's multi-channel. We want you to be everywhere as a client. And that means places like Facebook, Instagram, Gmail, YouTube, Google Display, even LinkedIn or potentially Twitter, and anywhere else we can get ads in front of our audience. Remember, we're dealing with humans who consume content possibly in the same way you do, possibly slightly different. Everybody has their go-to places where they interact online. We don't know from where they are, so we need to be omnipresent for them. We need to be everywhere. So the first thing is we go omni-channel. We then try and make ourselves omni-relevant, and the way that we do that is we have good branded messages. We want different mix of messages. We want to be telling them the kind of things we just said. Here's what we've got. So we run actually 4 types of ads. The offer ads, here's what we've got. We run the branded ads, which are here's what we stand for. We run the review ads, and here's why you should trust us. And finally, we run seasonal ads, which allow you to stay in prospects' minds in a way that's timely to them at the moment. So it could be 4th of July holiday, it could be Christmas, it could be New Year's, but seasonal ads that are relevant. And the way that we do that then is what we call omni-rotation. We don't want prospects seeing the same ad 1,000 times. It's highly expensive to run, it's inefficient, it's boring, and it's ineffective. So our creative process means that for any typical client, we'll generate upwards of 150 ads that we're running at any one time for them. That's a heck of a lot of ads. 150 ads means that we can rotate frequently. It means that the same ad is only ever seen a few times, and so it doesn't become annoying. The person doesn't become blind to it. And we also cap the frequency, so they're not seeing too many ads on a daily basis. By putting those things together, so we're omnichannel, we're rotating, we're relevant, we're on multiple different device types, we stay really well in front of our prospects' minds in a way that's highly, highly efficient, and it controls that narrative. And that, for us, is the key to it. And let me just explain why. I've got time to do that. There's a really simple reason why nobody does this. It's a lot of work. Just to generate 150 different ads, create all the audiences, synchronize the ads across all the audiences. That's video and images and things. Very few people, other than the biggest brands, are willing to take the time and effort to do that. Most people, when they say they're running retargeting, they've got an ad. They've got an ad on Facebook or on Google, and that's it. And that's not the best way to do this. So we know that the omni outcomes compared to normal outcomes are significantly higher, and for all the reasons just explained.
So do you think that there's a place, and I'm curious, I've never asked you this, do you think that there's a place where retargeting doesn't fit?
Yes, and to a degree. There are places where I can see it being less valuable. So if we think about why it works because 95% of people don't convert on the first visit. So if we think what does convert on the first visit, typically things like emergencies. If you need an emergency plumber, that implies that you probably are going underwater and you need somebody there now. A 3-month retargeting campaign is unlikely to be successful. If you look at the conversion rates on those kind of niches, emergency locksmiths, emergency plumbers, yeah, to a degree, they're generally the ones where you're going to see a lower return. Outside of that, though, I can't think of anything where it would be a definite.
On the locksmith, I would agree, right? Like windows should be a lot smaller. On the plumber, though, the emergency plumber, chances are, if you're calling an emergency plumber, you're ending up with some water damage, which is going to lead to a ginormous bill to you or your insurance provider, which is going to lead to probably some not so great feelings. So I would argue on plumbing, actually, and emergency plumbing specifically, that the brand ads and review ads and testimonial ads, I think it would be highly important for probably a 7 to 14 day window.
I think you've given me an idea.
Because it's like the retention play. It's the feel good play versus the blowback. What do you mean this is $15,000, right? So that's curious. That's very interesting.
It's exactly that. And I think, so yeah, I agree with you in terms of there are sideways moves you can make on it. I think from the point of view of the emergency plumbing service itself, it's difficult. But if you think in a larger sense, and you've got the right kind of customers, absolutely, it makes perfect sense all day long that you could do other types of retargeting to other services. And that's why many businesses don't think about this. They think about what's immediately in front of them. I mean, we've done it and we've used it even for, let's say, training companies to existing customers to get them to show up for the training they're provided, to get them to consume the content they've already paid for, to retain that feeling of brand value. That's massively valuable for people. And because it's your existing customers, it's ridiculously cheap. You can't assume that people are opening your email all of the time because there's a pretty good chance they're not. So if you want to stay in touch with them, retarget them.
Yeah, for sure. Email open rates obviously are down, not to be a Debbie Downer, right? Like we need to be hitting people on as many platforms as possible, right? I could put out an email and get X amount of clicks, and I could put out a YouTube ad, for example, just on one platform and 10X that number of clicks, right? And cost me very little because I would be using an audience that I already have.
Yeah, exactly. And to my mind, that's one of those great things that if you think about it that way, if you send me, if you've got, let's say you want to communicate for me for even 2 to 3 minutes, that's going to be, let's call that 500 words. If you do a short, quick, informal video, then retarget with me, I'm probably going to watch that when I get a break in something convenient. You send me a 500 word email, I'm probably not reading it. So yeah, a 500 word email feels like hard work. A 3-minute video seems like fun.
So you don't need to be creating a high volume all the time. From an SEO perspective, it can actually damage you. If you've got a lot of content with no links, it'll pull down rankings of stuff that you have got. And I know you guys do a lot of SEO and agencies and things.
It causes big problems. We have a lot of very similar pieces of content too. So you mix the two and we got some nightmare scenarios for sure.
For example, we were ranking number 3, I think, for our target keyword, and the Yoast SEO plugin broke, and it created a brand new indexed page for every image on our article. So we had like 900 pages overnight, and we just dropped out of the search results, because we just had too much content on there. So it just goes to show like how it affects. I blame kind of media sites in that those guys are paid for eyeballs on adverts, and so they churn out content because they want the same person back 10 times a day. But if you're a business, in reality, you need only so many conversations with someone to make a sale. So you don't need a huge volume of content. You need strategic content. You need content that sells, content that attracts, and then you can create content for systems like for an article that a lot of people, link builders are going to link to and stuff like this so that you raise rankings. So it's about being strategic in it. And understanding that you don't have to churn out a lot straight away. After that, you realize that you can spend 5 times as long on an article and get it better. Because I always see it, this is what blew my mind. So like the direct response world, the paid ad world, guys will run an advert to cold audiences to a sales page and make a sale at a profit. And so they just do that all day. And it works because of the psychology of the page and the ad.
Yep.
It pulls them down, it gets a conversion. But they don't create assets. Whereas like the content guys, they want to create assets and they don't want to sell or do ads. I took the principles that we would do for a sales page and I put it into content. The psychology of why it works and how to pull people in and things like this. So, I make a lot of mistakes and I read a lot of smart people. So I looked at like Jonah Berger. He wrote a book about Contagious, why things go viral.
Yep.
Things like that, like why as a society we share things and link to things and stuff. I read a lot of case studies by BuzzSumo and those guys about content that actually does well for rankings. And we found that there's like 9 elements, basically, that if your content has this, it's going to do well. So if your content has authority, i.e. if you're seen as an expert, more than likely it's going to be shared or linked to because they see it has value, which is another one. Because of that, you build reciprocity, i.e. people want to pay it back. So they'll either share it with a friend or they'll link to it or buy from you. So you include these elements, but when you break it down, in reality, it just needs to be long form. It's not like a 300 word, if you've ever worked in retail or in sales, it's insane that you think that you're talking to one person and you only give them 3 sentences and be like, yeah, I do SEO, we build links, it does this, and that's it. You're not going to convert them. They don't have enough information, blah, 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 blah. So in reality, you would have this detailed conversation with them. You would move them along. And by the end of that, they would either have like a new belief or they'd be ready to possibly buy, right? So that's what needs to go into your content. So longer form, step by step, high value. It needs to connect emotionally as well. So it's not just, you can get away with just saying like blah, 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 blah. But if you actually understand the reasons behind why people do it and you can connect with that, if you say like, we want to build links to get traffic because then it means you don't have to be at the office till 10 o'clock every night and you can spend time with your family. Suddenly that really resonates, so it's just taking those principles and applying it to your content.
Yeah. Repurposing has really just started to become something that people talk about a lot more. It was kind of a best kept secret for a hot second there. Yep. And it's a good thing for me, with this business that people are understanding the value that they can get out of their existing content, which is really cool. But that is really the big one right now. A lot of people are talking about it. I'm starting to see more people do it, which is really cool. Like you'll see people actually format it right. And you're like, yes, you put captions on your videos. But things like actually taking existing content, repurposing it. The IGTV thing is really cool. I think everybody was trying to figure out a way to put longer form content on Instagram because the problem is you have a great 2-minute clip you can put on Facebook and then you're like, well, now I got to trim that down even further or it's unusable on Instagram, right? So now being able to post to IGTV and just making sure it's formatted properly to be cropped into the feed if you choose to do that, like that I think is a really cool change that I see being, it's Instagram allowing you to get away with longer content, which is super cool. One of the last things I would say is selfie style content is actually super effective, and it breaks my video production heart to say that, but like selfie style outperforms highly produced video over and over again, and it's upsetting and also just the way that it is. So, but it makes it a lot easier to make content, so that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, I love it. My best ads, my best videos are definitely off the cuff, selfie style. I have an idea, I grab my phone, I quite literally go like this and walk around the office, and it does the best bar none. And even I've tested with and without editing, right? And so like even like a little bit at the beginning of like me getting in frame or something, and I've left it and it's performed better than the one that doesn't. And people are commenting like, wow, this is so real.
I believe it.
Crazy.
Yeah, because people
want to feel like I was just lazy and didn't edit it. What do you mean?
Well, that's real, right? Yeah, people want to feel like they're seeing the behind the scenes, the actual person, not the production piece. I think that, and what's so interesting about that is now I think a lot of people are taking that to the next level where it's obviously planned and they're making, it's still like produced, but it's coming across like it's actual natural footage, which is interesting. It's the world we live in. So
it's funny. Like I left in like me like taking my finger like this to hit the stop button, like quite literally, and it worked.
Good.
And it was great. So yeah, I see that happening big time. And I think Everybody still is in the mindset, though, that it's got to be some like crazy produced video. And I'm thankful that it's not, because it makes my life easy. I don't do well with a big green screen and a whole formal shot. It takes me forever to do content, and I just like, let's do it again, let's do it again, let's do it again. It'll take all day for me to get out anything worthwhile. So I'm sure that's had a big impact on your business, though, right? Like just the ease now.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's funny because I think people get into their own head about needing this highly produced content. And something that I can just keep on reiterating to people is like, it's so much easier. Like the devices we have right here are way more effective than the first cameras I was buying for my video production company. It shoots in 4K. What world are we living in where this is a thing that we can do? And you can still make it look good with that. Like you can still figure out nice ways for it to be lit well. Like you don't want hard shadows under your eyes. You can figure out better ways to get your audio done. But like ultimately for $30, it can still look really clean, but also like selfie style. And you can just crank it out as on a whim. But I try to, again, like the front loading thing is really important. I'll just tell people like create a running doc on your phone or like a task list or whatever of topics that just pop up to you during the day. And you're like, oh, I really think that I should talk about this. Or I had a call with this guy about this one thing. I need to think to talk about that, or that anybody even had questions about that. And if you have that running list, then you know that like when you have 30 minutes to shoot selfie style video, you've got your phone on you, I'm sure. Go buy a window and just start shooting them, and you don't have to post them all in the like consecutively, but at least you have it now as content that you can post when you're ready to.
100%. Completely agree. Yeah, I think for me, I always tell people like frequently asked questions, should ask questions, right? Like I do a weekly webinar that I use for my content ideas too. It's like my content farm. So like I do a Q&A session, an AMA every week, and that's what I end up using to kind of repurpose. I'll either repurpose right from the webinar and it's me on camera like this, or I'll do I'll recut it and I'll reshoot it. And that's my content ideas. And it's an hour long every week. And I automate all of my content through that one piece.
That's so smart. And that's like one of the key ways on repurposing, especially the fact that you're asking questions at the end. So you're answering questions that you know are being asked. So it's like, that's obvious content right there. Awesome. Super cool.
So number one, let me just say this, right? That like, look, too many people, and this is one of those writer downers for your listeners, man. Too many people, they try to make their product better. They think that the answer is make the product better. If I make the product better, more people will buy. The reality is that better is only known or determined once somebody buys. They don't know how good your product is until they buy. The reality is that the best use of your time is always spent in thinking through how can I better present my idea behind this marketing campaign, behind this message. How can I develop a better idea, a more compelling idea? I sit back and I think to myself, what could I say to the market that would get everybody's attention, that would make them say, whoa, I need to hear more about that. And I'm constantly thinking about that every day because number one, the market evolves and shifts. New competitors come in, new messages are promoted, new things are out there. The market shifts, changes, matures. And so the mindset, the perspective of the market evolves. And so I'm always asking myself today, what is it that I could say that would get the market's attention? And how could I use that? How could I mold that and change it into a big idea, right? And then, of course, like you said, the big idea is there to get attention, to stop them, cut through the noise, get their attention, and get them to ultimately continue on in your marketing message. The lead, the first 350, 400, 800 words, is there to set the hook, meaning it's you use the big idea to get attention, and then you set that emotional hook in the prospect in the first 350 to 800 words. That's where we get them to say, this sounds awesome. Show me, like prove it to me, lay it out for me, man. It sounds amazing. It sounds incredible, but now show me, like get me to believe you that this is legit. That's where we then introduce the unique mechanism. And the way to think about this is is extremely simple. So number one, behind every product or service, there is a mechanism. There is a way that the product delivers results. if you're selling a fat burning supplement, there's something in that fat burning supplement. It's either an ingredient, it's a combination of ingredients. There's something in there that is responsible for why that fat burner will burn fat and help somebody lose weight. Take a software that gets top Google rankings, let's just say, for people. Well, there's something in that software, the way that it works to produce the top rankings. So every product or service has a mechanism behind it. The beauty of the unique mechanism is that, and let me say this, the unique mechanism, it's a marketing invention. It really is. There are lots of products that have a true unique mechanism. They have a unique algorithm behind their software. They're a massage therapist that does a unique combination of bodywork methods, right? And that's how they get people pain free, right? So some products have a legit unique mechanism built in, but there are other ways to engineer your own unique mechanism, even if you don't immediately see that you've got a unique, one of a kind algorithm. So everybody can do this. But the beauty is that when you present a unique mechanism, when you basically say to a prospect, right, I've got a new and different way for you to experience the result you want. I have a new and different way for you to get top rankings on Google. I have a new and different way that nobody's ever told you about for you to get pain free. I've got a new and unique way for you to grow gigantic tomatoes in your backyard, a way that nobody's ever told you about. Well, number one, you give prospects hope. You give them hope because they look and they say, well, maybe this is the answer. Maybe this is the thing that I've been missing. Maybe all the times, all the things, all the software, all the other things that I bought, maybe they didn't work before because they were missing this one unique mechanism, this one unique element. And so you get them excited. Right? You get them excited. See, today, and this is important without going too crazy deep, see, the answer is you're not going to promise your prospects something brand new that they've never been promised before. Not in the majority of markets, not in the majority of niches. The majority of niches today, we already know what the prospect wants. There's somebody, if not many people out there that are already promising to give them that result. So how do we differentiate if we can't differentiate with the promise? We differentiate with the mechanism behind the promise. We promise that they're going to have the result that they want, but we show them how we're going to do it with something new and different. And when you basically, Joe, when you tell somebody that you've got a new and different way to give them the result, they get hopeful, excited. And now the beauty is that the rest of our marketing campaign is not trying to sell the product. The rest of the marketing campaign up until the offer, before we ever even talk about the product, is us educating the prospect on how and why that unique mechanism works and how it works more efficiently, more effectively than anything else out there. We're teaching them, we're enlightening them, we're giving them insights about it. They're grateful, they're thankful. And by the end of the marketing portion of our campaign, they're like, dang, that sounds amazing. That unique mechanism, I get it. That's what I want. That sounds like the perfect solution. It sounds like, right? We're not selling. Not at all were we talking about the product itself. And let me make sure that everybody understands. The unique mechanism and the product are not the same thing. The product contains the unique mechanism, right? But the product, you could have a product named Fat Burner Extraordinaire, but the mechanism in there could be the SLC formula. Right? And it's the SLC formula that does this, and this. And the reason why you want to use the SLC formula is And then once we lead somebody to accept the belief that SLC formula is the answer for their fat burning needs, then we're able to transition into the offer. And then we say, and that's why we took the last year with a team of doctors and nutritionists to put together this product called, the Fat Burner Extraordinaire, because it's built on the SLC formula. Boom, done deal. You just now created, again, like I said, all roads lead to you because you introduced a new and different way for the prospect to get the result that they want, and then you educated them on that, right? Marketed to them without having to sell, and you created the demand before you rolled out the offer. It's beautiful.
I don't think one is better. Well, I'd be a hypocrite if I did. I'm doing both of them right now. So we have clients through my agency, the Search Initiative. I have quite a few clients. I'm also doing affiliate marketing completely through my agency, LeadSpring. So I'm doing both, and I would say at 50-50 level. There's pros and cons to each, right? So in terms of client SEO, the awesome things are it's low risk. You basically get all that money up front, and it's great for newbies too. Not saying like only newbies do client SEO, but it's great for newbies in the sense that you get that money up front. That can be used to pay for tools. That can be used to pay for your education. You can learn with that money. You can experiment with that money, and you get it up front. With affiliate SEO, you're putting that money into a niche idea. You don't know if it's going to work later. You're buying content and links up front, and you're not even sure that it'll get past the sandbox, but if you're doing the right things, you will. So in that sense, like client SEO is a lot safer, and the risk is mitigated, and the money's up front. That said, I would say client SEO is hard to scale in the sense that you now need another skill that also isn't inherent to the typical SEO personality, which is very data driven. You need the skill of sales. So you need to be able to sell yourself and communicate with clients. And that can be 40 to sometimes up to 50 and 60% of the job is just communicating with clients and managing those projects. So it's not just you doing your work, but you're talking to people and you're making sure they're calm and stuff like that. Whereas with affiliate SEO, it's just you and the websites and Google. And you don't get held back by needing to talk to the clients. If you have a bad month, it's between you and yourself. You can have that conversation in 1 second and you're done. And I guess with in terms of monetization, like I would say that it's kind of different. I mean, you can definitely scale an agency to 6 figures a month. That's definitely doable. You're going to need a lot of staff to do that, though. With an affiliate model, it's kind of like depends on how successful your niche is. Like you can find niches that can easily make you $50,000 to $100,000 a month. But the model that I like to use is a flipping model where I'll get a site to max out. Maybe that's at $5,000 a month, maybe $50,000 a month, and then I'll flip it. Once I flip that site, I get all my time back. I get all my resources back. And then I have a big chunk of money that I can use for investing into new sites and stuff like that. I'm all about diversification, so I'll do both. But I would say in terms of my own personality, I like affiliate better, but that's just my personality that doesn't want to get on the phone and sell myself and that kind of stuff. And I like high competition. I was a big ex gamer, so there's some part of me that just wants to be on a leaderboard in the hardest possible.
Anyway, the biggest mistakes, like first and most obvious one, I simply didn't understand how blogging works in a sense, like a tool to help your business. So I didn't understand blogging in terms of business growth. I understood the basic principles that everyone understands, that you have to publish new articles, that you have to tweet them to your audience, that you have to go with popular topics that everyone is publishing on their blogs. So basically, I was doing so-called monkey job. I was looking at other blogs in my industry and writing almost the same articles that they're writing, and like tweeting them, trying to submit them to different communities like Reddit, etc. And it didn't work out. So I simply didn't understand like what is blogging, what is the business objective. So whenever I was an in-house marketer, and for example, I was working on CMS, content management software, a tool that helps you build your website, and we had a blog. Again, I didn't understand like what blog is for. Yeah, we could post some updates about this software, like what's new in our software, and send it to our customers. And like to some of them, it was interesting, of course, not to 100%. Then we could cover some, I don't know, industry news, like what's going on in the website building industry, some new technologies or something. But I never got traction. I never figured out the simple idea that if you're blogging, you might want to like. I know I'm not sure if you want me to go deep on this, but let me just quickly share that I think there are two approaches to blogging. One approach is if you focus on SEO, and it's actually not blogging anymore. This is what we're doing at Hrefs blog. We're simply finding topics that people are searching for in Google and covering them on our blog. So basically, it's not even a blog; it's a collection of resources that are findable online. So our only objective is to publish something that people will later discover in Google. If there's no search potential for a certain topic, we wouldn't publish anything about it. So that's the first approach. The second approach is the storyline. This is what, if you know guys from Groove HQ done, they had an amazing blog which had a footer that said something like, from aha to oh shit, we're sharing like everything on our road from like 0 to $1 million annual recurring revenue, something like that. So that blog was different. So they didn't necessarily cover topics that people were searching for in Google, but they were sharing their own story, how their startup is growing. So everyone who was in a similar situation, everyone who is running their own startups, everyone who is doing marketing, product management, etc., they were interested to follow their publication and to see what kind of other challenges they meet, how they solve them. So it was interesting. So yeah, there are two approaches to blogging, and they didn't realize any of them back in the day. So we didn't focus on SEO, and they didn't focus on storyline, and that's why my blogs weren't taking off. I simply didn't have any of these strategies in mind.